I'm Parni Jaggi, and in this series of literary terms, we are going to be discussing plot today. Now, whenever we watch a drama or read a drama or even a short story or a novel, we see that there is a sequence of events that is making up the story or the main system which is happening inside that text. Now, these events are not random, but they are sequentially arranged or written by the writer. So that is actually the plot. Let's look into the definition of the plot. Plot is a literary term used to describe the events that make up a story or the main part of the story. These events relate to each other in a pattern or a sequence. They are not random, they are not haphazard, but they go sequentially, and the structure of a novel depends on the organization of events in the plot of the story. Now, it may be the structure of a novel or a one-act play or a drama, whatever fiction we are reading, but it depends on how the events are organized in a particular sequence. Plot is known as the foundation of a novel or a story or a drama around which the characters and setting are built. And why is it used? Because it organizes the information and events very logically, rationally, that you can remember that yes, this happened after this and this happened before this. So when writing the plot of a piece of literature, the author has to be extremely careful that it does not dominate or overshadow the other parts of the story that he is writing. Now, what are the primary elements of a plot? Basically, there are 5 main elements which can be briefly explained, but then they can be further elaborated in the coming videos also. The first is the exposition or the introduction. Now, this is actually, you may call it the beginning of the story, or you may call it the beginning of the plot, where there is a kind of an introducing of the characters and also the setting. Where are things happening? Why are things happening this way? What is the location? What is the time? What is the space? What kind of characters are there? How many characters are there? How many characters were previously playing a role? How many characters are yet to come? So this is a kind of introducing the plot of the story. And the main problem is also generally introduced in this part of the plot. That what is the movie, what is the drama going to be about? The second element of a plot is the rising action. As you can understand from this term itself, that there is an action or there is an event or a series of events which is going to build up, which is going to rise in an ascending order. So this action occurs when a series of events build up to the conflict. Because a drama is all about conflict. There are 2 conflicting things. So when we watch a movie, we generally see there is a positive force and a negative force. There is a hero and there is a villain. There is a protagonist and an antagonist. Because life is all about conflicting forces. So rising action occurs when a series of events, one event or a series, build up the conflict. The main characters are established by this time. The rising action of a plot occurs, and simultaneously events become complicated or complex, or while watching a movie we find that the things are becoming more interesting. The action is building up. So now we become more engaged, more engrossed with the story when it is rising action. So it is during this part of a story that excitement, tension or crisis is encountered. Then we have the climax. Now, this is a very common word used by moviegoers or by the readers of literature, that there is a word called climax. Now, climax is some point in the story when something has built up and something has to be exposed or something has to be reinstated or something has to be disclosed. So this is a kind of a turning point in the story. This is from a literary perspective, this is actually the moment of the highest interest or emotion, and it leaves the readers wondering what is going to happen next. Usually, you all must have felt while watching a movie, oh God, this is the climax scene. What is going to happen next? So it creates a kind of a suspicion and a thrill inside the moviegoer, or the one who's watching the movie, or the one who's reading the text. This climax plays a very important role, especially in drama. Then we have the falling action. Falling action is like the winding up of the story, that now we are kind of winding the story. It occurs when events and complications begin to resolve, and the results of the main action are now displayed or put forward. That yes, because of these things, now these results are coming up. These are the highlights of the story. This is the result, this is the reward that you have reaped out of all the previous actions. And then finally we have the resolution or the conclusion, which is the ending of the story. It may be a happy ending or a sad ending, a tragic ending, but it actually concludes the story and we finish reading or watching a drama. Now, when we explain plot from a literary perspective, we need to support our term with the help of literary works. Now, the first interesting example that I'm taking up here is by the contemporary series of writing by J.K. Rowling, which is the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, when we see modern literature, it is easier to explain a term because it is familiar to both readers as well as the moviegoers. Now, here the plot of the story begins with Harry when he learns that Professor Snape is after the Sorcerer's Stone, and the professor lets loose a troll who nearly kills Harry and his friends. In addition, Harry finds out that Hagrid let out the secret of the giant dog to a stranger in return for a dragon, which means that Snape can now reach the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, what is happening here is that some kind of a series of events is building up. There is some ladder. One step is leading to another. This is the plot. Without this well-knit plot, we could not have a fine story, or we could not have a fine movie. Now let's look at another example from English literature, the novel Pride and Prejudice, a famous novel by Jane Austen. Now this is a good plot example in romantic fiction. And it's a story about three sisters, and the plot begins when Lizzie's sister Jane falls in love with Darcy's friend, Mr. Bingley. Lizzie develops an interest in Mr. Wickham, who accuses Darcy of destroying him financially, and so on and so forth. Things become complicated, and then there is some kind of conflict which is visible in relationships, and then they write back, they dislike each other, they run away. Lots of things happens among the character. There's a complexity going on, but this complexity is made simple for the reader only through a well-knit plot. Now, we may have by now understood what is the function of the plot. It actually binds the story. It is one of the most important parts of the story. It gives a proper attention on the main elements of the story. These main elements can be characters, their role, then their effect on the story, their connections. It makes the story orderly, disciplined, logical, rational, and it creates a desire for the reader to go on reading, or for a movie watcher to go on watching the movie by absorbing these people in the middle of the story, ensuring that they want to know what happens next. Then the plot leads to the climax, but by gradually releasing the story in order to maintain readers' interest. Now, during the plot of a book, a reader, of course, gets emotionally involved. If he is finding it interesting, he is engaged, he is connected with the book, and it does not allow him to put down the book. So eventually the plot takes him into the story, and the plot reveals the story, giving the reader a sense of completion, that he has now finished the story and reached a conclusion. So we see how plot is the most important thread which binds the story, and it forms a memory in the minds of the readers, allowing them to think about the book or the movie or the drama, and even making them want to watch the movie again, read the book again, or watch the drama again. Now, by identifying the plot or by understanding the plot, the reader is also able to understand the message being conveyed by the author. Now, this message may be explicit or implicit, it may be moral or it may be realistic, but there is a message behind every work. So this was the importance, the function and the definition of the plot. We'll move on to the next definitions in the coming videos. Stay tuned till then. Thank you for now.